We are here in Istanbul today at the Gaza Tribunal final session, and it's actually a great opportunity for us Palestinians to meet. I am lucky today to meet one Palestinian legend. He is a law professor. His name is Wadie Said, and he is the son of the great, prominent Palestinian scholar Edward Said. It's really good to see you here.
Yes, well, thank you. It's great to see you, Ahmed. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you very much. Allow me to ask you about your father in the 70s and 80s. He wrote many, many books in which he described how the Palestinians are feeling like out of a place in the US, how there are a lot of stereotypes about the Palestinians in the US and in the West in general. And now we are in 2025. Have you seen any difference in the way that the media and the political establishment in the US treat the Palestinians?
Well, there are some subtle differences. I mean, I think what happened was he put in a massive effort and was at times, literally the only Palestinian attempting to appear in the Western press, especially in the United States. I think he had a bit of a different reception in England. So, for example, where he got a little bit more airtime and attention. But in the United States in particular, there was a period of time, especially in the 70s and 80s, when saying the word Palestine was almost like inviting someone to fight, that how dare you use this word. And I think some of the things we've seen is that, the use of the word Palestine is now, at least it's accepted, and, and there is more of an idea of representation. I think what we've seen is that the mainstream media in the West has largely continued to sing the same tune of, humanizing the Israelis, prioritizing their position, assuming that, the state of Israel is a legitimate entity in everything it does, and that Palestinians are terrorists or, kind of, if they have any rights at all, they're very subsidiary. So that narrative, unfortunately, has remained rather prevalent in the mainstream media. What's changed is, I think, and this is where my father's work was very instrumental, was in the academy, especially in the global north. That point of view has become a minority one, and the more pro-Palestinian view, which is a more just, humane view, is now more mainstream. And also with the advent of alternative sources of media, especially social media, when the reality is much more available, more people, especially younger people, have been taken by the Palestinian position and more the actual reality of the situation. So I think he sort of laid the groundwork for all this to happen. And unfortunately, mainstream sources, which are tied to things like, alliances between countries and, kind of military or, contracts to buy weapons and things like that, that are much more important than, matters of conscience and the truth and how people feel. Those have remained stubbornly, kind of similar. But there has been this breakthrough, which hopefully will herald a change in the generations to come.
Yeah, I think there is a breakthrough, especially after the emergence of social media in the West. As someone who lives in the UK, I can see there's a huge difference on how people in the West view Palestine, how some of these stereotypes have been broken about Palestine, but still, when it comes to social media, there's a huge change. When it comes to mainstream media, maybe not. But what about the establishment, the political establishment in the US, especially in the US, how they use these stereotypes to crack down on the Palestinian activism in the US?
Yeah, I mean, I think why the issue of the crackdown on the American university has been so, kind of entrenched and embittered and embittering from the point of view of the students who have kind of had to deal with it. And I won't, of course, speak for them, but my observation is that the government and, kind of the more kind of establishment forces, you could say, really are not happy with this idea that the younger generation, the future leaders of the United States, the ones who are pursuing higher education, are so committed to the Palestinian, I hate to use this word, but I will, narrative,
Yeah.
right? And because it's not just a narrative, I mean, I think it to my view, it reflects the reality of the situation versus, the Israeli narrative, which is really a spin or a kind of a propagandistic line. So I think there's been a real focus on attacking this movement in the universities to the point where things like freedom of speech and, commitment to academic discourse has really suffered.
Yeah.
It's really being impacted to the point now where you're seeing professors being investigated for their academic work, for their their research that they normally do, which is kind of, I think, crazy if you would like to have universities that are committed to this pursuit of knowledge. So, the price that's being demanded of the younger generation and of people in universities is really quite high. And I hope this effort to repress these voices and to repress free inquiry, I hope these efforts fail.
But this is a crackdown on universities and university professors in the US who are, I don't want to say pro-Palestine, but who are pro-justice.
Yeah.
How long can it stand for? How long can it stand for? Because it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think there's going to come a time where I think, unfortunately, in this current moment, and this is sort of what we would say in the US is a bipartisan thing. I think it started under the Biden administration and it's continuing with even greater force under the Trump administration. This assault on higher education in service of a pro-Israeli narrative doesn't seem to be sustainable if you want to maintain higher education as we know it, in service of a knowledge-based agenda. So it's a real question that the country has to ask, in terms of, and I think it's true for, Britain and countries in the so-called global north as well. There's a real question as to how long this can go on. I don't know that it's sustainable, and I don't know that it's possible to have the crackdown that people have envisioned just because of the fact that they're asking, professors and students and researchers to not read, not analyze, not use their minds. And that seems so fundamentally opposed or, kind of the polar opposite of what education should be. So on a conceptual level, it's hard for me to imagine. On the other hand, because I am a lawyer and a law professor, and I've seen that the law can be unjust, even as it's written, not just how it's practiced. So we also, I think, have to be cautious to not dismiss what we perceive as illogical efforts as just doomed to fail because they're illogical.
Well, finally speaking about the law, and we're here in the Gaza Tribunal in Istanbul. Why did you think, as a law professor, that doing this tribunal is very important, given that they are symbolic? Like the outcome of this court, it's not binding. It will. Some people argue that it will not lead us anywhere. So why do you think it's important to come here?
So I think it's important to, I think a lot of the law, people, when they think about the law, they think about, things that they watch on television. The police come and they arrest someone, and then the person is charged, and then there's a process and a trial, and then if they're found guilty, they're put in prison. It sort of works like that. And in many instances, law does not work like that. It's an extended argument about what sort of standards society wants to adhere to. So I think it's more, the Gaza Tribunal is more in that vein. It's about articulating standards and articulating what we as a world, not just, Palestinians or whomever, what we as a world think, people deserve in terms of treatment and rights and et cetera, and things like that. So in that vein, I think we can say that the efforts, civil society efforts like this one, are basically dedicated to offering a record of how civil society, how activists, how people in general feel about the situation, in this instance, in Palestine, in Gaza, and the intense and deep injustice of what the Israeli kind of authorities, the military, have perpetrated not just over 2 years. I mean, even before Gaza was under siege from 2006 onward, it still wasn't free, right? So this is a long-standing injustice that people have been moved to do something to try to change in whatever way they can, knowing full well that, of course, it's also a situation governed by military force and things that are beyond the average person's power. But that doesn't mean that people just accept that and do nothing. They try to articulate what they feel is moral and just. And I think this Gaza Tribunal effort is in that in that sort of general, type of general channel or vein or outcome.
Dr. Wadie, thank you very much for
Thank you so
joining
much.
us. Thank you for speaking to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.